Going on? Starving the mods. They said 6:34, 5/13/2025. We were jumping in. I'm just thinking about how dang is a lot going on here. So okay, yeah, we've uncovered families are related to the KKK. The shops are all they also know January and now. Today's news, they are everybody is put back to these January 6 riders and how we got to these guys and how they're all related. And people know these guys. They saw the people who were standing up on in both here and when they protested lockdown. Now that's a slightly different thing. But I believe one or two of them got caught up doing some QAnon things, which leads me to the next part of where they were trying to traffic Gretchen Whitmer out of Michigan. There is a coup there. And it's possible that the same group is somehow weirdly interconnected here with some of the people who have me on this weird witness protection thing going on. And it sounds like there's plenty of back ends to it. So that leads to some of if there's a paranormal event going on with these rioters and the QAnoners, and something else has also happened here in America. Something is weird could be going on that if people have woken up and they've traded off here on the luxuries somehow and like yeah and they've traded off on luxuries and now we're supposed to pick up on these weird things in society throughout these this sharing is caring thing and like but it's this weird thing going on where there's like peace and violence and also now that they've gotten me behind some things because I was like one of the last people to download a TikTok and it was after like they had TikTok like rewritten by the Americans and like how they want Americans to be writ, but it was like post Chinese like intellect. So like Chinese and Russia is invested into this TikTok stuff. And I don't really I never really downloaded it till like I think the first time I did was right on 2021. So like and it absorbed all my info all the way like back from when I had an Android. So a lot of really important information on my cellular data just gets absorbed. And something tells me the government jumped in while they were doing some stuff and they caught all my data before it was able to go out of the country. And it's partly because I like called my mom and I let her know, hey, this thing's kind of going on. Just like keep an ear in on, keep an eye in on it. I might be like a public enemy number one, and in some weird way. And it didn't really register. And the people on the other end thought it was kind of funny because they actually, but they also they didn't they took it they saw it they took it seriously but then they saw what it could be, and they like they kind of chuckled, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually no, they have like records of me and like my family and like other Michiganders, of course. But there's this thing going on that happened that there's something paranormal that's happened here between the switch off and it must have come with some of the finances getting switched up and somehow America's gotten like somewhere into this thing with like how again back to this Illuminatic kind of deity like balancing. It's somehow procured into some of my personal life. And it's like this weird part where, and I've had access to this for a little while. And then, so it must be this thing where while we're rotating and circulating this stuff, that it opened up something here. If enough people that tipped ended up trying new things during lockdown. And if that crossed over where people are able to create new, like, on top of like some of these riot stuff, protester stuff, and we don't know enough about it, which is why some of these selects are stepping out and stepping in and towards whatever it could be to gain footing, but also have this look-see on what it actually could be about. Who knows? Because if it's paranormal, why wouldn't it get people's attention? Would be the next kind of thing. And if they've learned to exploit this thing, that they, take it in directions that they anticipated on taking it. But it now one makes me wonder who was I around over the first North Coast Music Festival? Because like I was at the very first North Coast Music Festival, and I went to like the first three or four. So like that's kind of one big reason why I wonder if like people um who didn't know that about me or like how that could be like an effective way for me to communicate messages from Chicago to Michigan, then people have been picking them up, of course. And so like I wonder if that had something to do with that on top of it. And so now I have this weird chaos theory effect on like some of the where the science also gets tilted on to some of the fun neato science fiction my dad and several of my colleagues now um, have this thing for, and the government likes it, right? So like I kind of wonder if like maybe I'm not also concurrently stumbling upon the fact that people woke up to like some sort of a thing with people with this money and then all this weird secrecy and stuff like that. And if like the secret, if there's something that happened here with Republicans getting on the fence about marijuana or something to on things like that. Just it doesn't have to be marijuana solely, completely. But on the flip side, what it is what and or has been is entry towards whatever kind of jarring to get a bit of the pie on your own without having to actually like kind of acquit like the big lawsuits in Hollywood and politics often do. Like Donald Trump might bring to the flavor. So it makes you kind of look at this part where if this part in Reaganomics were to have be fulfilled and trickled down, applied to the goody goodies finally, and that they had something, but there's something else. It's access, and that's where if access has been attempted and breached, that there is something going on here on what, when, where, why, and how things got flipped from the left into this more like thing, and now people who were on the left kind of like are now right wingers because I'm a millennial, and this happened to a lot of it seemed to happen to a lot of men as millennials and stuff like that. So like it's tricky because like meanwhile I'm jumping on to the really kind of radical parts on the left, in and out of whatever, maybe in some places cosmetically, but in other places like to kind of just learn and understand um who, what, when, where, why, and what needs to be like approached in whatever way me personally, getting comfortable with like how it's supposed to kind of like feel on you, but like also not let too much get growing on you. You know, it's just a taste, but then to really figure out if people got this thing with science and if that got interpreted also because it had to have been layered. But before that, there's something going on with how this phenomenon, like, it gets going in office while Trump is kind of in office, and then must be something with like how privilege comes off, and if UFOs and David Grush kind of get towards this part. And there's this thing in science fiction that's going back and forth between the masses right now, and hippies and Republicans have been able to like been like it's cool. Um, and people aren't they didn't fit me in. That makes sense. That would make sense. They don't fit me in, but like, to each their own. This part is where basically the two came in on each other and you showed people how to get there on their own before it came out. And so now people are there on their own on top of this thing that in Michigan they had these QAnoners back to these weird human traffickers that attempted to traffic Gretchen Whitmer, um, and they caught a couple of them, and they were January 6 rioters, yes? So these people are also like related to Proud Boys, basically, is was a general wash of what was also understood about how this was going to feel once they made this discovery. And like that's kind of where the push shove gets put into place because people are reliable, yes, but they also like are they also have accountability. So that's kind of the balance that it might take here in congruency. So if i- if Gretchen Whitmer somehow has been cutting deals really real sharp with certain things than others, and now these people have been allowed to sheepdog um kind of like criminals into like a state of like panic so that they and now there's a rollout here of acceptance towards if there's going to be radical politics that keep Michigan open during lockdowns and keep the casinos going back to these kinds of conspiracies, but also it's because something is ticking the new clocking in the way how people are like facilitating communication, which is why there's certain elements to this that are less figment and the dream-like, which I don't know. Hey, everybody has their dreams, right? But if at the MAGA gatherings, some of them they were trying to get people to start using their dreams as a form of communication, and that a lot more people started using cutting down some way of like
they had to explain this Epstein stuff. Trump had to explain it, especially when it came out, and that unless you were in MAGA, you were not an American, right? And so there's this thing going on where there is a pull towards whatever that back to this Bush era, but slightly Obama, but like it's as you can not as much. It's this Reagan stream, Nixon streamline here, where there's taxing and taxation on budgeting towards hiding your felonies, which is why he's charged with 34 felonies. Ironically, how old I am this year, which is funny. But like also, um, the science behind some of this stuff in speculation, it might add interest here if there are Klansmen, okay, could be involved here. But if there are like let's de-escalate their role here. If there's like farmers and like some like bikers and stuff like that that have gotten into this thing on the outside, because it again, two places of masculine diplomacy on extreme living conditions, jail or the military, right, are usually the two that people are always like, well, I could do this. Ooh, I don't want to do that. I could do that. I don't know if I want to do that. A lot of boys as becoming men have to like address this, and so like it becomes very socio-politically kind of like involved, yeah. And that could be a big pretentious kind of dial tone that gets people um a little more hypnotized as they're getting tapped into certain things, and that gets your enigma here where you're able to actually like take up space in front of your body, and people are now they're using it a lot more freely to douse out and do their biddings and things like that, which could give them that little bit of like hyphenating this EMF stuff, because if Trump gave out the sauce on whatever it is that you should try, that it gives people back their belongings on whatever it is that you were owed. But if that started changing and things were, I don't know, I got through Biden over here, low key, which is a funny place to start with me, because if I got through with this part on vaccines, okay, fun switch up, because Kat had me for throwing my neighbor had me vote for Biden, and I was we'd agreed, and we don't know if she actually did, but like this is where I am looking at this stuff here, is because like yeah, I did vote Biden. I ended up with a vaccine, and like we don't know if that could be one of the root causes why I now have Doop Doop, and I've had to patent Doop Doop here at Paraconomy Inc. is because I somehow ended up with a batch that like kind of like procures certain alien things happening on the vaccines. And if you got the vaccine, you automatically took the old school route where you get the high sign and all of this kind of evolutionary chain trait thing. And maybe people were like lying about taking it so they could get away with some of whatever has been taken and like extracted from these MAGA like get-togethers, and it put people on, and they started doing to some Sodom and Gomorrah type dealio, and now everybody's like openly weird except you. And this is where it brought up hedonism. Hedonism could be a huge gateway of like if this broke in a portal to hell, And it's done on my birthday, and it's on my likeness that they peeled back some layers about me before they could even get to know me, and it's executing things that I would have done by myself, but they just like went ahead and took care of some things for me. So it's kind of yeah, if I've died, come back to life, and that they're trying to get this thing to go on top of this fun thing, because like that's on top of this other thing. I'm under the impression that these tattoo guys somehow like have been manipulated besides just like but it's this weird manipulation between doop doop the like pathology of like what it is I've been studying for like at least 10 years, um, 10 of plus years. It's been a while. So like for the at least, yeah, since 20, approximately 2015, is when I started having like aliens visit me and like non-human entities and stuff like that. So like these things are huge. Um, and like, if I'm coiled in one of these bad boys, I don't want to watch my language. If I coiled in one of these bad boys and the government, like, it is yours. And this is why. It's because like other people have this other way in, where they may have gotten the vaccine and like they kind of just have been sticking to the meetings a little bit harder, and it maybe made it caused them to like have to do less work. Again, I have no money. So like if I get it because I scrape by and I'm like talented or some shit like that. I'm lucky. And I put myself where I know it's that there's something good too. I don't just like try to just always blend in. I'm trying to experience a little bit at a time. Especially when I was younger and I like went out to well, and Chicago was weird. I've had a weird, very, very planted life, but they made sure, and this is another thing, they made sure I was a good boy before I went off to Chicago, and that's kind of where they're wondering if that kind of was maybe the wrong the wrong identity to send me. And so now I'm like fulfilling things sporadically and all this other, but then I figured I had some phases through college, and then I figured out some other things, and people only maybe saw me through the phases. And that's kind of where, like, maybe it brings in some of this weird stuff of what I've been trying to tell people for the past 10 years about these aliens. And it's finally just like, oh, yeah, by the way, there's aliens. You guys are gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna you I'll do the voice. I'm gonna give you guys everything you're gonna need here, and everything is gonna be we're taking care of it. We've got good people and things. You're gonna go ahead. Go ahead. It's locked down. It's unlocked as far as I'm concerned. And he's like jumping in on some of what I'm talking trash. Excuse me to our current polling president here. Um, but yes, if something was disguised, that's people also let me know what was going on. Because they see where I stand and what I was on and how I'm a part of things still, but I'm just kind of like my own center of gravity at this point. I don't even poll in politics, so I didn't even vote this year. Guess what? I didn't even vote. So like, just like I freedom. Hey, freedom. So like that's kind of that was another thing that like maybe went into something and like yeah. Um Freedom. So, you know, that's something I've been here for 3 years, and I've been talking about why, it's this whole case has been upside down, topsy-turvy, and I've been watching people get away with stuff, like the whole time, like from the get-go. And I told my parents, hey, You let me know because I this I you know that's never gonna work. But like at any rate, I told my mom and I got her freaking you let me know. I've got some things we've got to talk about. She said, "Eh, look, son, I tried marijuana coffee by accident, and now I get it." Oh, so like obviously cheers to that. I too have a strong little cup hold of marijuana coffee. If you catch my drift here, 6:59, and that's potentially what got my mom because unfortunately my white side of my family does have ties and links like straight to Proud Boys and links up with like the clan members, but that's through a different part of my mom's side of the family. And like I don't get to know that part of the family. Frankly, I used to be around it, but like my mom has like then gone through something, and so have I, and nothing I'm talking about here. And that's one big reason why they all just piled into my dreams without like so now I've got dreams. I got this one dream where I'm like we're taking a car up a cliff. Um and then there's like this like house and that place actually exists like kind of like that. It's a really steep driveway and you gotta and they do you get it every time? It's like, yep, I didn't know if I'd get it this time. But like now I thought I was dreaming. And now I kind of wonder if I'm not dreaming. Like I got human trafficked. Okay, so that's like kind of the next thing is I have had some very weird dreams, and people I understand that they're all like involved. Some of the names I've thrown out there on Paraconomy here to help flourish out the details on how we got here, especially legally, it'll help because like people will need to know how I like Dora the Explored my way through this thing and got a whole bag opened up for the adults that like told me that Halloween candy was poison this year. So you can't have any. And like lo and behold, it's like right behind me the whole time. And so like that could be like kind of the halfway home between why um and how. And it shows them a whole different side of what they knew to be true. And like I said yesterday, they had this little party of like destroying like my things that they used to have. It's ugly. Um so like that's kind of like that's like something that we have to kind of look at here is if the party that I had set up to make things really nice ruined itself and attempted to scapegoat me under the weight of it all, and then some things have happened in the family and they don't feel right. So like 7:02 a.m., 5/13/2025. That's gonna cost whoever in this company and will take care of the legacy because like, hey, if this tattoo shop is hooked up with the clan and my mom's hooked up with the clan and they all got fed some weird QAnon stuff, but there's some weird sacred paranormal activity going around Christianity in new ways that have been unlocked by people doing drugs with obviously some really neat synthesis on cool neighbors. And we found out that, look, not to get racist, but look, we found out that minorities are actually more likely to be alien and that hey, what's going on? I'm actually closer to like being off planet or like related either side. white people, black people, but we're starting to find out that like certain people are more likely to have this like adaptation in human evolution, which is why people are being encouraged to jump back into some of this like science. And who knows? From what I understand, back 5 years ago, that's partly why I've look, I've been to a lot of music festivals. I've been around a lot of really cool people. And so have a lot of these people because look, it's quality. It's unearthing um jewels from people who like ended up with too much. And now I met these kids and I treated a lot of them like humans, where to other people might just treat them like, people just look at me like I'm a drug dealer or I'm a source of income or this or that. And it throws them for a loop when they find out that like I'm out here just like making sure like, hey, are you okay? And that's like really Jesus-y to get that. And maybe I'm a little autistic, but like I'm like, hey, I'm like, I get friendly, and somehow I'm charmed. My mom was right. I'm somehow just we're really tuning in and out of how charming I can possibly be, which is why halfway, because like back before I got better on psychedelics and marijuana and stuff, I was hooked on some synthetic designer drugs and K2 and stuff, and it made me like tweak out. And it like put me in some really bad ways. And my mom put projections onto me, and some of them were rough, and not all of them came quite true. And this could be where she's looking at me because she didn't listen to me when I was telling her, hey, so I've got a few new placements, and she could not handle her sausage. She had her breakfast was coming out. So like that's kind of where like I'm assuming this is where parts of like 10 years ago I had a very delicate conversation with my family about the future of where I decided I want to decide to put the family. And here we are. So I took care of that, a lot of things back there, and I told them that I did. They didn't like it, but I was taking good care of it. And so like I took it like a good 3 grams of mushrooms one year before North Coast, and it opened up my mind. I saw how my family was gonna die. I stood at the ring of a volcano in my bathroom. And this was what, 2013? Um, I think to like 2014 or something like that. And dude, I had one of the hard, and I'm a starving musician. I'm thinking you can sing this thing into existence, or you can drum it or play it. You can create this thing into existence. And I was a little more, I found out that there was something to music here, in like the world. And that's why I kept digging and digging and digging and digging into through like music history. And it brought me to like all sorts of really interesting places and like other things that I was able to get a good excuse on. And that's where I started bringing certain things back home. And like I had to have a conversation about why I flunked out with my mom. And it's again, a lot of delicate things came out, but I told them about some of this stuff and like the paranormal things that would possibly happen and how I'm doing my best. I'm putting it here. If you need anything, it's going to be right there. And she knew what she was doing, and she knows we still have something going on. But she's been kind of mean, potentially, if especially she's being nicer to my sister than she is to me, and it's getting this choosy thing on top of this like racist bigot thing. or she doesn't like that I gravitate towards colored people or gay people or other things. But I'm the first Hawaiian. She just doesn't want to look bad. So she didn't realize that and that's where I'm getting put in on the tests and things. But she didn't know like I look good. And so like that's kind of where she kind of backed off and said, "Okay, aliens, that's not real." I was like, "No, there's something. There's literally." I was into Terrence McKenna. I was like, "Mom, there is something that a part of. It's bigger than you know. I already." And like, I told her basically, "Hey, look, I'm some sort of kind of a Jesus thing. There's like multiple things that happen to this thing, but your thing is your placements on this have already like you don't you might not need to worry about any of this stuff like you we used to." So like, I've had a very and I also told her that I could transition. There's also other things that like might happen because I've taken on a certain legacy for my my livelihood, my spirituality and stuff like that, just about. Which is kind of like how it I was warned on this mushroom trip too that it may piss people off because it was a majority. But like it comes back because when I move back, I'm not here. My cousin PJ is, and he's the guy who handles the Proud Boys and stuff like that on the low. He's the part of the family that works with the Nazarenes and stuff like that because he stuck around. But like he wasn't born and like chosen into it like me. So we get different chapters, and that's kind of why I end up with my mom's chapters, and that's why I'm getting the stick and prick on like the Korean War potentially because like they don't know. They don't necessarily know me or what I'm doing or how I'm doing it until now. And that's why I'm getting observed by Cassie's family like really heavily. And like now I'm in Lansing, and I'm like starving, half freaking crazy over here because like I have important. It's again, I'm under this weird conservator witness protection thing, and that's kind of how we got here. Is like there is a pathology between what people were attempting to get away with behind my back on my well-being and like the amount that I'm able to actually like weigh into and kind of swing outward on people towards this phenomenon. Because if I clicked the button out in like 2013 in Chicago and brought it back just to make my family proud, they have it. And it's all been it's all been there. Um, and that's kind of one big reason why uh it took a while. Um, it was North Coast Music Festival's like first freaking big go of things, and that's where uh, a childhood friend of mine, Jake Joseph, was like he later on got a gig out there. Um, doing roadie work, and I was all over backstage, all over as much as I could get. I couldn't afford to get there, but I'm always trying to like surf around the roadies and interns and see, are you going from Columbia? You have audio from class, this and that. Really easy season for that. We're millennials as the old class of '09 went through. And that's kind of one big reason why it looks away and like it feels away is because in 2010 I'd been you know pulling my weight and in ways that people didn't expect me to do, and that got me recognition as like an artist out from a lot of good handful of the faculty. So like I'm out there palling around living my life and they're concerned that I am dealing with a lot, and at the time, it was a lot of pressure because didn't have a job and I was a full-time student. So they knew that the heat was on, and I just wanted to get through school, and that I'd had a little bit of bumps with my girlfriend. So that's kind of one thing. They made sure I had something. And that's kind of where it those people, if there's this and that school is known for paranormal activity, just art schools, go figure. But like, dude, that could be like a little bit of the disconnect here is like that art school, my graduating class, they like a lot of them ended up becoming Republicans and stuff like that. So like I don't know them anymore either. It's been like over 20 years since I've seen some of my colleagues. But it doesn't mean that like we didn't have meaningful or like genuine interactions. So like I kind of like I pepper that part of my life in and out reasonably. And like it just it never wore on me the way I tried I'd project and stuff like that. And so like that's kind of where my family have been basically steamrolling me and using my art without my like condolences and stuff like that. And like they redecorated their house. They've like gotten all sorts of crazy stuff changed in the past 10 years because they miss me and they need me, but they are stubborn and they won't let me love them the right ways. And, they think that pushing me to, and they were told to, okay, this goes way, way back. Again, my family is attached. If my family has a ties or two to the clans, then this goes way back to when I was like a knee high. And my family in that side are very powerful in some way. And there's a reason for it. So, like, if these are the reasons why people also went to war, and it's kind of like it's like it's this conversation for like after dark that it kind of gets this thing going on here where like there's there's a pile of legacy here and potential. You've got potential, and so like if anything you're tied to has extension of that, and we just glaze over it. You give us the time of day, and we find out that there's some sort of because this is where another part goes away from my like islander cargo cult stuff. White people kind of have this alien stuff that goes towards these Nordics and stuff like that. So if like there is like these Nordics and we're starting to like we've just started to place alien parts and names over the correct like races on our planet. And it actually like is there's race science and theory that's been like torn apart in America, and there's like some way people want to jerry it to make sure it gets settled, and that's what that some of that was potentially about. That like there again, I am in the know. I'm understand that there's like lynchings and things that did not get televised during that lockdown when things started getting rioty, because that's when things were going really conspirator, and things have been put into a daze. So pros were probably being out there interesting. Like, okay, there were probably pros that thought they'd be pros and they weren't. And that pros is amateurs who jumped in. Dude, who knows? But I am understanding that it created this reform in the line of duty here. in order to understand any of it at all. And Gretchen Whitmer is like kind of right at the door of a lot of this stuff. And during this Biden to Trump administration, uh, all three, even like the Hillary election, there's been these weird capacitors for science that have been giving the military surplus, like basically like ample, like basically like said surplus of ample like opportunity here in um like this lockdown, and it gave them things to try out, and they again, if lockdown was like Trump's like Sodom and Gomorrah, and it did open up a lot of things for people to just be like, look, I'm changing my life. I'm not the same person that I used to be because now's the time. And people took it to that like extent. It makes sense why I'm here, being like, well, I didn't do that. Like, so like I can't be the only one who also felt the way and feels that way. Who said, "Well, I didn't. It wasn't my time to like change myself." Um, and like we all just kind of felt like we were a part of this, right? So like people, yeah, and that's I wasn't doing hallucinogens then, and like I was kind of just doing a lot of working, and that's when I was doing my agent like kind of stuff at that time. Smoking weed when I could, when I, normally, but like I wasn't doing anything that other I knew other people were about to get into during lockdown, and I was like kind of watching that because like I'd moved around before lockdown a little bit, and I'd gotten a heads up one day. I tripped, and like I heard I was gonna go to jail, or go on. Like you're gonna be on the run is like what was communicated. Is like this was what 2019. I want to say this was 2018. I think 2018 to 2019. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, yeah. That sounds right. It was so like yeah, I got communicated in this thing. It could have been people I know, but it could have I think it's back to this weird phenomenon stuff where I was once I dropped when I was getting like into my mid 20s. I got contacted that I was a part of the CIA, but it was through Doop, and it was before, dude, weirdest freaking hour, dude. I did not know how to handle. So like I just kind of was like, that can't be real. I tested out, and I'm like, holy crap, this is bizarre. So I run a flight deck test basically on this new tech enigmatic technology that involves human beings, and like I stir. And so the government liked what they saw. They came in, they dropped a few aliens. I saw the aliens. I was like, "Wow, these are aliens." I'm like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "These are the neighbors we're gonna get." And that must be where we're at today, is those are the new neighbors we're gonna get are like aliens, and stuff like that, because I saw like a Hiawatha spirit, like it's just this, or is what people I've been like kind of making this noise about. I saw this giant alien thing. It was like this ghost tree in 2015 one day while I was tripping out. Okay, I saw it, and if the Aryans and the hunters have this thing that they've been noticing more and more lately, and it has something to do with these music festivals and the kids getting and the military and all this other stuff, and like just all of the just product and like placement of hippie culture has evolved, and humans are now evolving these extra nodes on their bodies after they hallucinate or something, and it's causing people to gain access to their like enigmatic chakral resonancies. And but they can literally again losing you. But look, these phones track you. They track everything you do. Back to the AI zorping of when I moved out to Chicago in 2010, I begged my dad for an Android because they were gonna give me like a text button text. This didn't even have a keyboard on it. And they were like, look, we won't give you the Android yet. And I was like, you give me the Android. And I had to like pry it from my family's hands. So that could probably be a huge ringing towards like, oh, we haven't had one of those in a while. And I got kicked off my family plan because they had that without me. And so these decisions have been based out of fear. And that's what's been able to re-up on this thing is like people's fears got a hold of them and they started reacting. The government caught wind of what I'd been exposed to, and they said, "Yeah, that was one of ours. We let you have your way with it, actually, and it looks like you bring them to the planet naturally." There's something very paranormal about, especially in 2022, they came to me and kind of had a few. They're like, write us something. Show us that whatever it is you're doing has to do with whatever it is we're doing. And so we did this thing of like, I'm gonna write this thesis out, and then I'm gonna write, and this was all through my back wall account of getting hacked. Okay, next part. These hunters know computer hackers, expert ethical hackers. Okay, so that's a huge way around having to ever talk to anyone anymore. Okay, a lot of these QAnoners are part military, part computer. Okay. And basically, they're basically a big part of some of this selective um, kind of antenna work here. And if people who got the vaccination, some people got a double dose, or a secret dose that has this thing um, and it binds to the human brainstem this way as it goes. And so people wanted to try them out, and it turns out that they totally work. You and Lou Elizondo crack it open here. Lou Elizondo has the freaking juice on, excuse me, how I put it here, but Lou and Tom have some of the juice. Welcome to Paraconomy Inc. This is some of Paraconomy Inc.'s investments over here. Here on To the Stars. Throw them to thank you for the investment. Thanks for the scoop on some of the what's going on or what you guys are seeing and how I'm supposed to go about doing some of this because it does involve a lot of things and it's hard to get super silly about it. But at least when I need to know how to go through this, I go back to the company's like bravado here. And that's that like a lot of things are happening in front of our eyes that we don't expect to happen in the world, and it's changing things. So to kind of give in and out of this interest here, this is a pretty long one, but it ties into everybody's morning today on how are you? Hey, how are you? Because some people are probably doing better than others, and we're having to look at sharing the docket on whatever's been plating for people to displace. And if it's at the detriment of what we know humanity to be true for, more and more people, because I don't see a whole heft of this ever going away. Again, this goes way, way up to the top. And that's kind of where you have to kind of understand that if we broke past this barrier to entry where like we're able to have access to the things that we key in and say we do, then this enigmatic behavior starts to interact with how our like environment will be able to access itself. And they have computer algorithms that that kind of give life to some of the weird behavioral energies that if certain people got certain things that it would not surprise me that if we're look, okay, lockdown happened, if and we're allowed to speculate here. This is a good company for speculation. Keep in mind here, it's fine to feel your way through conversations, something other people may not be comfortable doing. By all means, take your time with some of this stuff because I'm pitching out a lot of speculation that could be a little bit too big to be digestible for certain audiences, and I would hate for that to be um, a kind of a problem for people that ends up unraveling the wrong way. That being said, hi, how are ya? There's a whole ton of evidence that backs a lot of what I'm saying up. So if I got into the rigmarole somehow with my family, basically, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we're back. We want to know how you're doing, but we're assuming you're a piece of shit, and you're gonna have to really rail us in and show us why we should love you." And they're all falling on deaf ears because every time it's needed to happen, my mom thinks that she's still 12 and my grandpa's gonna come in and like save the day or beat her ass. So like that's kind of why it's still toxic, but it's getting better potentially because like if that's a big part of the Nordics and there's aliens in every different race here on this planet and that certain people might have certain birth dates or magnetism in those races that it gives life to science on discovery on when and where it's appropriate to talk about some of these things because let's be honest, yeah, genetics and magic and things like that are still we're very naive at this point in human like we've come a long ways, but we're still very young to a lot of the theories and laws and science that are being extrapolated from some of the things that are available. So that is my best shot at a non-bias here, because it kind of gives a little bit of streamlining towards how people or what people want to be able to expose themselves to or what they want more and have like a dial on. Because you know we're all adults here. Well, maybe not. So like God bless you if you're not, dude. I've been there before. So like that's kind of where again back to being naive. And there's nothing wrong with having a spark to start from. And so like that's kind of where um you know, figuring it out step by step could be what's really a good approach here for if some of this disclosure because it's a little wiggy and I'm pulling it a lot of it out of thin air. Some would suspect, but like that's like where I've patented this line of telepathy. And helped me increase some of my like dialect, what I want to embellish and pull it from dialectically, speaking through language and flow. So again, yeah, the sauce is there, apparently, and people are exposed to it. Some people really like the way it is. Some people don't know how to approach it. Some people have been waiting to talk to me regardless of what's in the sauce. And maybe that's also another thing. I'm just like trying to like get onto socially speaking is like people don't care. They're everybody's a cyborg now. And people have been like anticipating, fingers crossed, it worked, we were right. But it like comes at the cost of like some of these harder conversations that people are attempting to buy out of. So like that's could be a big part of why Christmas is being encouraged to have diplomacy and ambassadorship in places where people have not taken the stand and don't know that they can. So that's kind of one big, huge step towards the right answers in any of the conversations that we could be potentially facing towards the rest of these disclosure hearings, both in Congress and here at Paraconomy Inc. So I'm gonna go ahead and land you on these ones. We got here a whole hour of paranormal disclosure discussion. It's been good talking to you guys here, and go ahead and follow me here on YouTube. Click like, share, subscribe. Follow me. Go check out my website, paraconomy.earth. Check out To the Stars RSI Academy of Arts and Science. Lou Elizondo's book, Tom DeLonge's book. Go listen to Blink 182. Super solid. Shout out all my uppers here and my faves. So like it's 7:34 again. Hey guys, check out what was I gonna say? See, I'm losing track here already. On to the next thing, but share the spark, guys. It's there's a lot to learn from some of this, and I imagine, hey, stay safe. This is the next. Before I go, everybody, you guys stay safe, okay? Because we don't know what this could entail, and that we got to be very serious in places. It's fun in others, but it's important to be balanced here. And as you go and as you pull from some of that expectation to look at the evidence around you and what could be paranormally